Hi YouTube, Cosplay Vicar here with another episode. Today's a bit of a show and tell. I want to show you a prop that I've been working on for a little while. It's a prop that I got inspired to make having watched Indiana Jones, many times. Adam Savage recently showed his version of this. I was like, you know what, I really want to make one of those as well. One of the reasons why this particular prop was one that I was really interested in making was because, so I'm a vicar of an East London church bombed in the Second World War, and on the wall in one of our offices is a slightly larger version of this. It's printed on newsprint and it just says air raids, and it lists all the air raid shelters in the Second World War, and there you have All Hallows Church, Devons Road. This is kind of hung on that wall, and we've had it laminated so it doesn't get damaged any further. But it's just this beautiful Second World War poster printed on newsprint, and it made me like, you know what, I want to reproduce that Second World War air raid poster. So that's what I've been working on. It is a kind of reproduction of this that we might be able to give to people who want a bit of a memory from our neighbourhood. And it inspired me. I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Look at the paper and how you might print it so it looks the same. And that's what really put me on to this. This is my Indiana Jones Grail Diary that I have been working on for a little while. There's a whole load of different ways of reproducing this particular prop. I set myself some parameters. So I love making things that are screen accurate, but sometimes going down that rabbit hole means you never quite get to the end of making something. And I wanted to make something that felt to me like the Grail Diary from Indiana Jones. I wanted something that I could reproduce and then I could add to and keep developing as the years go by. So this, I would say, is my version 1 of the Grail Diary, of which there will be probably a second and a third iteration. So my parameters were, it had to feel right. It had to kind of look right, even if it wasn't 100% screen accurate. Now, the screen used Grail Diary wasn't like this, in the sense that this is what you call the story diary. So you can read the diary from beginning to end, and it tells you the story of the Grail. The one that's used in the movie was about 20 odd pages that were reproduced over and over and over and over, sewn together. So actually it was just a collection of pages that were going to be used in the film. I wanted something that you could dive into and read as if you were kind of exploring the real diary. I'm going to walk you through it a little bit, how I put this together. So the stamps, I sourced a version of the stamp, printed these out on my own printer, but using sticky labels. So these are sticky labels, and then I used a pair of scissors to try and reproduce the edging of the stamp. Same with the label on here. Now, the Grail Diary has this little Viencia Italia stamp on it. I want to tell you how I reproduce this on here like this, because this is a really fun technique that you might be able to use on other projects that you're working on. If you want to reproduce something that looks like it's been stamped, or you want to try and put an image onto something else, then this is a beautiful little technique. You can use baking paper. If you print onto the baking paper in reverse the thing that you want to transfer on, like the stamp, then you can print it with your inkjet printer onto baking paper, being back to front. When you lay it on there, it becomes the right way around. And then I just use a credit card and you kind of brush it so that the ink transfers from the baking paper onto the thing that you're trying to put it on. So this is a really neat technique if you're wanting to try and reproduce a stamp on the corner of an old document, that kind of thing. So that's how I reproduced those on there. So let's open this up. It's wrapped in just, in the UK, it's just brown craft paper. This piece of brown craft paper, it's actually from a brown bag that I got from a shop. It had a handle on the top, and I just cut it out to size. I wanted something that was already worn, but the beautiful thing is the more you wrap your Grail Diary up in the paper, it looks more and more authentic. So here we go. Here is my Grail Diary, bulging with maps and letters and photographs. I want to share some of these with you. Now, how did I make the diary itself? This is my little cheat. So online, you can buy for about £12 to £20 on Amazon, eBay, AliExpress, these horrible reproductions of the Grail Diary. And I'll put a screen grab now of what one of these looks like. It doesn't look anything like this at all. What I did was I simply took it apart and I weathered the leather and used sandpaper on the leather on the outside. I ended up using some old brown boot polish to darken that up. So having took it apart, I was able to then douse the pages significantly with coffee and do all the kind of things that you would normally do from school to weather paper. Tea, coffee, staining and all of that kind of stuff. And that's what I then essentially ended up with, was the diary that looked like this. Nice, old, weathered, falling apart. This is just the look that I was wanting to go for. So here we have the Grail Diary in story form. It walks you through the plot of the story, how he essentially pieces the mystery together of the Holy Grail. There's still a couple of bits and pieces in here that I want to add in, but I'm 95% happy with what I've got in here. It's stacked full of these little reproductions of tickets and timetables and other bits and pieces that you have in the Grail Diary. Where did I get all of these printoutables from? These all came from the Replica prop forum, or the Indiana Jones kind of cosplay pages that you can find on the internet. Lots of people have documented these different pieces of newsprints and things. Let me just show you this. This is one of my favorites. This actually looks and feels like a real newspaper piece. So this says New Gospels Authenticity Disputed. And on the front, you've got that news piece. And on the back, you've got newsprint as well. It feels like a newspaper, torn around the edges. So I actually showed this to a friend of mine, and they were very convinced that this was actually tearing from a newspaper page. So how did I do this? Well, for that, I used this paper here. This is just an A4 pad of newspaper, and it literally just is newspaper paper. And I put that through my printer, printing on both sides. All of this, you know, the great thing about reproducing a paper prop like this is you can get hold of a pad of paper like this for about £4. So everything, you know, you can do the whole thing relatively cheaply. So I'm really pleased with the newsprints. So there's a number of these newsprints on there, nicely screwed up, torn around the edges. Feels about right for the Indiana Jones prop. Let me show you a few other things that you've got in here as well. This is my edition. This is the Blue Star Line ticket for the Titanic. Torn around the edges, folded over, hole punched, again on newspaper print. All of this from the prop forum. Maps of Venice, again printed onto old paper. What else do we have in here? There's letters. So the yellow, you know, bookmark there, that ticket, and this ticket on here, this was just printed onto some card that was just the right card that I had lying around an old drawer. So I don't throw anything away. So my drawers are filled full of old, you know, this is newspaper print, but thicker than normal newspaper. This is just cream paper that I used for some of the printouts. But this here, This is old cardstock that I've had for years. It's quite standard cardstock, but the colours of it, you can see it's old cardstock. It's not the kind of card that you would pick up now if you go to the craft store that tend to be much brighter colours. So I've got that lying around, and it just was the right colours for the Grail Diary, which I was really pleased about. A few of the bits and pieces in here. Let me show you this. So this I would love to reproduce better in the future. It should be A3, but I've essentially used some tissue paper, and on the tissue paper is the rubbing of the stones from Indiana Jones. And the way I produced this was I printed this onto the baking paper, back to front, laid it on the tissue paper, because you can't put that through. That's way too thin, the tissue paper for my printer, and then use my credit card to transfer it from one to the other. And it's not turned out too badly. I'm quite pleased with that. It should be A3, so that's one of the things that I will be reproducing over time. But I liked, you know, a slightly smaller version of that than you would have in the film. But for me, it worked. And then in here, you've got a whole bunch of these photographs as well. So old JPEG image got from the Replica prop forum, and I didn't print the photographs at home on my printer. I wanted to get them professionally printed, so I went and had that done at Snappy Snaps. And then I used sandpaper on them to make the edges old, stained them with coffee on the back to try and give them that aging. So I was really pleased with the way that those old photos turned out as well. And there's just a couple of those in here. Here's another Indiana Jones and his dad, which I'm quite pleased with. Other things in here that you have to create, which were particularly fun. Here we have a telegram, and the envelope is stamped at the top. Well, you can guess how I put that stamping on the envelope, which was using the baking paper. But actually the envelope, I didn't have an envelope the right size. So I actually started making my own envelopes, found a template online to make my own envelope, glued it down, and created my own envelope, the right size for the Grail Diary. In there, I've got my the Eastern Telegraph Company. It's a telegram that Indiana Jones has received. So that kind of sits in there. The paper I used for this is just some cream stock paper that I had. And the more they get folded, the better, the more aged they look. So I'm quite pleased with that as well. Pop these back in. What else do we have in here? You've got rules of the tavern. 4p a night for bed, 6p with supper, no more than 5 to sleep in one bread. Guest log, some notes scribbled on the back. Again, all of this just came from the Replica prop forum. So it's stacked full of business cards, train schedules. It's all in here. Here we have a ticket for the Zeppelin, old newsprint on there as well. This is my Grail Diary. I'm really pleased with how that has turned out. Is it 100% screen accurate? Nah, of course it's not. But I wanted it to feel about right for cosplay. I wanted it to feel like it could be Indiana Jones's Grail Diary. I'm going to have this displayed on my shelf, open at a page. But there you go. Really pleased with how this one turned out. Have you got a Grail Diary? Have you made your own? Did you make the entire thing by scratch? My next plan will be to make the entire book, print out all the pages and make my entire book. I didn't want to spend months on end doing that. I wanted to get something quite quickly that felt about right. So there is my rendition of the Grail Diary. I'd love to see yours. I'd love to see what you've put together. What paper did you use? Are you thinking about making a Grail Diary? If so, what are you going to be making yours out of? Have you got any shortcuts or ways around making your Grail Diary? So there you go, friends. I hope you found that interesting. Do like, do share, do subscribe, all of that kind of thing. Ring the bell for the next video that comes out. But there you go, from my very own air raid poster. Authentic air raid poster inspired me to go for my Grail Diary. Friends, until next time, enjoy cosplaying. See you soon.